Hello, welcome to this video. I'm going to be talking today about the global lockdown, the pandemic, the C-19 pandemic, and I'm going to be doing it from a colour perspective. I need to say a couple of things first, just so I can give a context for the presentation I'm going to make. First of all, let's have a look at this symbol. This is different to the rainbow that you'll be used to seeing. It has different names. Orosoma would call this the colour rose. Unfortunately, I don't have a colour rose to show you today. This one is from an organisation called Prosvita, and it's called the Mystic Rose, but it's the same idea. What you have is the elements of the rainbow organised in a circle, and it's a very profound teaching symbol. You'll notice that we have the colours of the rainbows. Let's say we start with red here. In fact, let's start with violet. Violet is actually on the inside of the rainbow. If you were to see a rainbow in the sky, you'll see violet on the inside. And it goes from violet through royal blue to green, to yellow, to orange, to red. Red is on the outside of on the top side of the rainbow. Of course, if that rainbow were to continue as a complete circle, then you'd have then red at the base. So as we stand on the earth, then red would be at the base chakra, orange at so now I'm talking about chakras, of course. So there's a correspondence between the rainbow, the colours of the rainbow, and the energetic light consciousness part of ourself, which the Hindus, the yogis talk about as chakras, and you may be familiar with that term. Starting with red at the base chakra, through orange at the hara, yellow at the solar plexus, green at the heart, blue at the throat, royal blue at the brow, the third eye, and finally violet at the crown. So there you have the rainbow in the circle. And finally, between the violet and the red, we have this colour, which Orosoma would call magenta, but the magenta in Orosoma looks a bit different to the one here. That would be an Orosoma magenta there. Let me show it to you. Particularly that top bottom fraction is very representative of how you'd see it in Orosoma normally. So a little bit different colour-wise. The things I have to do. Okay, but this is going to be the basis for the presentation I want to make. In particular, I've been interested the last few years in two particular axes of this colour rose. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this down now for a moment, and I'm going to put it the other way around, like this, so I can talk better about the two axes I'm really going to base this presentation around. And to help you to remember what we're talking about, here's another kind of colour rose. It's got the same relationships, although it's in another form now. This was given to me by a friend in Hungary. I don't know what she calls it, kind of a colour flower, a colour sun, however. But you can see we have blue at the top and orange at the bottom again. And here we have magenta to olive. So let me put that in the middle of here, because this is really the two axes I want to base this presentation around. As I say, I've been very interested in these two axes for a long time. Blue-orange is a very familiar axis. When you see the Orosoma colour rose, you'll see blue at the top and orange at the bottom. And the inner petals are not so apparent to see. So blue at the top, orange at the bottom is very kind of maybe what you probably first notice when you'll see the Orosoma colour rose. Here's another thing I need to kind of say in just a general couple of lines. Colour is energy. Colour is part of light. Light is energy. Energy resonates with us, and different colours, which are different vibrations, resonate at different frequencies, and they stimulate different parts of our human being. And the key is in those chakra associations. So for example, blue will resonate at the throat. It will help us to speak up. It supports speaking. Green at the heart will support the heart function and support feeling, expressing. So blue-green is expressing blue of green feelings, for example. Yellow at the solar plexus, that's to do with the stomach, that's digestion, the solar plexus. It's also got the word soul, solar in there, soul to do with the sun. And the sun in the sky, the sun is at the center of our solar system. And this is another really important point because the sun, the yellow, represents or energizes our ability, our self-consciousness, our separate self-consciousness, me as an individual, I as the center of my world. Very important. Through orange, the kind of the hara, where we digest, where we enjoy, where we take from life, where we absorb. And finally, to red, the base chakra, where we're grounded. Magenta olive is the axis I've been interested in recently. And well, let me go back to blue orange for a moment. One of the things about, another aspect of blue along with the throat is, so it's the one who speaks. Who has the loudest voice? Who has the biggest voice? Because whoever has the biggest voice also has the ability to make things happen, because through what we say, things are manifested. So in a company, for example, it will be the boss. The boss will have the energy of blue and they'll say, and then the people who depend on the boss, the orange, the people who work for the boss, I work with the boss because I need money for my survival issues. So me and my survival issues put myself underneath my boss, for example. Okay. Now, when you talk about a country as a whole, then you'd say it would be the government who is the representative of the energy of blue. In the old days, it would have been the king, and the king, the philosophy, the theory behind the monarchy, the king was that he was the representative of God on earth. So ultimately it comes back to God and the blue sky above. And these days that's concentrated in the government. So I've got the blue energy here. And now, of course, I can start to talk about the situation we find ourselves in today, because we're in a situation of lockdown because the government has decided, and this is many governments around the world have decided this is such a dangerous situation that the government has to speak up. And what they're saying to people is that for now, it's important that you don't go out. I'm showing you the olive color now. Olive is between, so this is the other axis I'm interested in. And olive is between the yellow and the green. Yellow is me and green is space. So when I go into space, you have olive. Where yellow of me and green of space meet is olive. And olive is the way that I go out into the world. So let me put the olive there for you. But of course, what's happened is that the government has said that I cannot go out. So in a sense, let's turn that on its side somehow, if we can do that. That's not a happening thing at the moment. I'm not allowed to go out. In fact, instead, I should come back to my base, yellow to red. In between of those two colors is orange, which is the other color I'm kind of interested in here. Orange has different associations. We've seen a few of them, I would say, in this period of time since the lockdown. One of the first ones is some kind of shock. Is this really happening? Is this really happening? Which is like me, yellow, trying to accept the reality of something, red. Is this something real? Is this grounded? Is this a reality? I'm trying to make sense of that. Well, the government's saying it is. So I need to come to terms with that. So I I kind of absorb and let go. The orange in the body is where the large intestine, where once we've absorbed something, we can let go of it. So instead of being kind of struggling to let go of our shock about this, we come to accept the situation. I'm really taking too long, I know. Since then, of course, people have relaxed in, and if you're lucky enough not to have serious survival issues, like lack of money, if you don't have a job, and so you have no money, and you're living in a house where accommodation which you don't own and you have to pay rent on, that's going to be a crisis, and that'll be very difficult and upsetting, of course. Equally, if you can't buy food, so that's a given. But if you're lucky enough to have, some level of support and you can continue for a while, then you can be at home, and maybe it's not even so bad. You're with your family, hopefully, or with friends, and I certainly, living here, I see people walking around the village who I haven't seen before, but who obviously live in the village. So it's like brought people back closer to their base. It's brought life back to a more kind of based, grounded way, more local community. That's a plus, I think. At least for me, maybe not for my teenage children. Second thing, I want to talk now about, but it's also left people wondering what to do. What should I do with my time? And, along with all the obvious things like, maybe tidy up the house and do the jobs you were waiting to do for a long time and were always too busy to do. There are other opportunities as well. Education is one. A lot of people have gone online and started learning things. Let me now put this. This is the number 19 bottle that I spoke about before in my previous video. 19 is red purple. Here's the color combination. Red purple in our picture is red is here, of course, and purple is after violet and before magenta. Purple is just in that space there. Purple is opening the door to magenta. What's magenta? Magenta is, if you take that red, orange, yellow, green, blue, royal blue, violet, the 7 chakras, and the 7th chakra, the crown, is the violet. Magenta is beyond the crown. What does that mean? It means it's that space, energetic space above the head. Or some would call that the soul star. You could think of it as the higher self or the soul. And if you're in the East and you have religions of reincarnation, then the magenta will be the entity of your soul, which is before your birth and after the death of the physical, before the birth into the physical body and after the laying down of the physical body with death. The magenta is the spiritual home of the soul. It's the soul and its spiritual vibration. So you could say that the magenta is the spiritual dimension. It's the doorway, the access point to the spiritual dimension. So I think actually one of the things I really wanted to talk about when this first happened is just what an amazing thing this is for the Earth, for planet Earth. Suddenly, we humans who are so busy normally, racing around, spewing exhaust into the atmosphere, being busy, rushing over the Earth, suddenly it's all slowed down, hasn't it? And suddenly, in a way, there's a quietness. I was out the other day and I couldn't believe how far I could see. We live in an area of hills, so you can have great views from here. But I've never seen so far that I remember. And I'm thinking about it, it's probably because there's fewer particles in the air from exhaust, from emissions. It's made everything much clearer. I can see further. And this is another really important thing about the lockdown, actually. It's more about, it's about the stillness. It's not so much that we're locked down. It's the fact that there's a disengagement of who we normally are and what we normally do. Yellow is how we know ourselves. Red is our doing. Green is the world outside. Normally, we're going outside and we're doing things in the world. And in a way, our identity, because yellow is about, if it's about yourself and how do you identify yourself, our identity of self is very much bound up in what we do. And if we're not doing now, then in a way, there's a chance for a change in the way we know ourselves. So there's two things I'm talking about. There's a quietness in relation to the earth as a whole. Human activity is greatly reduced. So the earth itself, in a way, can become more present again. We can become more present to it because now we're not so busy rushing around. And again, I appreciate if you live in a city, that won't be so easy as here in the countryside. But there's a slowing down. I was very surprised when it happened as well that I wasn't, if I did happen to go out like to the shops, I was driving much more slowly than normal. So I'd slowed down somehow. I'd slowed down in this time. And we've slowed down, and also, in a way, how we know ourselves has a chance to change because I'm not doing what I normally do. Opposite to yellow is violet, and violet is some possibility of change, transformation. It's the opposite complementary color here. So if I'm not busy being myself, I can become something different. This bottle in the middle, 19, which is the number of the disease, is offering us an opportunity, I think. And this is what I spoke about in my number video. 19 is offering us, 19 is the completion of becoming a one. And when we complete in becoming a one, and I connected that to the age of 19 years old, and when you're at 19, more or less, you're fully physically grown. And once you're fully physically grown, you can start to go out and do in the world on your own 2 feet. You're ready to become functional, let's say, in the world. And the question is, what will you be functional for? Will you be functional for a boss, for the values of your society and your culture? Or maybe, and they don't need to be in conflict, but will you be functional for your own magenta, for your own soul potential, your own soul wishes, your own... In a way, if the souls come to earth, the question is, what has the soul come to do? Does it matter what the soul does? A lot of people in the modern world have found it, when it comes to work, you find that we have, until now, the last few hundred years, since the Industrial Revolution, found our work rather alienating for our spirit, because the world's been governed by the rhythm of the factory and manufacturing, and you end up becoming a cog in a machine that's producing things, but which you have no relationship to. And so we've become somewhat alienated from what we create. So we need to be paid money for it. And we need to earn money, because let's not go down all those long roads. But here's the question, can we reconnect with something more meaningful again? Is there something more meaningful? Is there something meaningful with which we can connect, which we would like to live more of in the future? Because we've had this chance to be quiet all of a sudden, all of us at the same time. And that, let me put the magenta up now, that's the next color I wanted to show you, because that's what's not normally seen. Normally we don't see the magenta because we're busy looking out at the world, and the magenta in a way is our true nature that is behind the looking. Just in a way that the one thing you can't see as you look around at the world is your face or the eye that's actually doing the seeing. I know we have mirrors now, but imagine that there were no mirrors. How would you possibly know You can see anything except who you are, what you look like, and specifically the one that looks. And the one that looks is the essence of you. It's the consciousness behind your eyes. And I would say it's your soul. It's your soul that animates your body. And normally we're too busy looking out, and this is looking out, but in a way this is quiet. And over the top of it, we have like a kind of, over the top of it, we have all these layers of conditioning and habit and beliefs and so on, which is why it's interesting that the latest bottle in Orosoma, which has just been born, called Echo, I think one of the associations of Echo, the coral violet, is we're all full of the echoes of our culture, the voices of our culture in our mind, which, oh, I like this fashion, oh, I like that TV program. Humor is very different from culture to culture. The clothes you bought 10 years ago, you wouldn't wear today, or 20 or 30 years ago, because the fashion has changed. And somehow we like the latest fashion. So much of what passes through our mind is an echo that's come from somewhere else, you see. And the question is, what's your authentic self? What's your own truth? That's the magenta, you see. And that's here. It's hard to access because it's one of those inner petals. But 19 at the moment is helping us because everything's stopped and we're not going out. 19 is giving us the opportunity, not just to be at home and be in our local community and so on, but it's giving us a chance to actually open the door back to the magenta, back to our soul nature. I'm going to take this one out of the way now. In fact, I'm even going to take this one out of the way. So this is what we have at the moment, really. The government, the higher authorities decreed that we should stay at home. We're kind of in the orange, but we have a chance to connect to magenta. This magenta, which is the soul before it came in, we have a chance to connect with it. We're not yet allowed out. Little by little in England, it's beginning to change now, but it is little by little. So the possibility of olive is somewhere over here, but we're not really fully there yet. And so I suppose what I want to come back now, I need to come back, I should come back to what it is about these two lines, these two axes that has interested me for a long time and why I think this is important. I think that these two axes, blue to orange, magenta to olive, represent two fundamentally different things. Magenta to olive is your soul nature flowing into life. It's you living your life. It's very individual. It's about freedom to live your life. And yet we live in a society, and what happens in society is this blue-orange axis. And I talked about the government earlier, but you don't need to think only about the government. It's about any hierarchy. When you're born into a family, and in your family, and this is what happens, when we're born, we tend to come into the orange because we are small, and who's big? Our parents. Our parents are bigger than us. And also we are dependent. We depend, orange, on our parents, blue. So we come in, but we find ourselves in this axis, and we find ourselves in the orange area of this axis when we're young, as children. And now in this particular time, in this particular crisis, we find ourselves a bit thrown into this same area again, because we are underneath the authority of another, the government that's asking us not to go out, asking us to stay at home, asking us to be good citizens. So we're having to sacrifice what we would like to do, perhaps, probably, or our energy to live our life, we're having to compromise that with the need of society at the moment. How can we get through to Olive? Or, interestingly, what I've come to think is that irrespective of the global lockdown, just what happens in life is that we start off in magenta, we are magenta, we start off close to orange, forgetting the magenta because we don't see our soul. We start off in orange and we kind of grow up towards blue through our childhood because we become more. So what's something about blue? Something about blue is responsibility. You have more voice. You have no voice as a child, really. You can cry for what you need, and your parents will have to satisfy you to a certain extent just to stop you from crying. But when you're 8 or 10 years old, your power to influence what your parents do or is limited, because in the end, they're the higher power in the situation, and so your voice is less. And it depends on your nature a bit. But when you're in the playground at school, you'll probably meet some other people. You'll make some friends. You'll be in orange together, and little by little, there'll be a hierarchy appearing in the group. Someone will become the leader of the group, and the one who's become the leader is the one who's becoming a bit more blue in relation to the rest. The orange will follow the leader, and that goes on throughout life. And in a way, you need to have some capacity to be a leader if you want to get to the top in an organization or a society. You have to grow in responsibility. I know I've talked too much. It's going to be too long. What I really want to say is that to get from magenta to olive, the way we go out in the world, we find out how much of this axis we can inhabit. Are we only in the orange? How much will we grow in the blue as we come through? And do we need to, actually? That's the interesting thing, isn't it? You could be magenta to olive and live your own freedom, but not be part of any hierarchy. But if you want to be part of a hierarchy, then you may have to compromise your freedom to live your own life, because you'll need to do what the boss asks you, or what the organization asks of you. And over time, if you prove yourself worthy, then you'll become invested with the power of the organization and authority within the company or the organization yourself. But of course, that would also bring with it responsibility. And so you'll be fulfilling this axis. And so I think there's an interesting relationship between these two. Society, organization versus individual freedom. And I suppose also at this time, because some people have had to work much harder, because if you're still working, you're probably doing something that's taking a lot of time at the moment. Or you might be someone who's not working at the moment, and suddenly you've got all this free time, and that will bring you back to here. Well, what do I really want? So when I go out into the world anew, will I be able to live more of this in my going out into the world, or will I go straight back into that hierarchy situation? I've got there was more I wanted to tell you, but I'm going to have to make this video short. I've got to cut it short now. But one thing I do want to say is I found I've just been teaching my first online course. I'm finishing tomorrow, in fact. It's been a really great experience. It's about reconnecting with this, and about how to bring this to this. And I've called the course Gateway to Life. I found that title today, actually. but it's really perfect for the course because it's a course that's built around the archangels, and in particular, well, not particular, specifically, it's the first 8 archangels. In fact, it's the first 7. It's a 49-day course, and it's built around the first archangels, but they finish with Jophiel. Jophiel is pale blue, pale olive, and it's about how we go back out into the world. So it's really interesting. It's been a great course. Been a great course for me, and it's been really interesting. So I do want to talk about that in another video soon. I want to do another course. I'm going to start another course in June, and if you're interested, you can always send me a message on Facebook. Just let me know, and with your email, and then I'll let you know before I advertise it generally. If you'd like to get a head start on that, I'm going to stop this video now. Thank you for watching. If you want to know about the next videos, if you click subscribe and hit the bell, then you'll be informed when I do further videos. And if you like this one, please put a like. And thank you very much for your time. All the best. Thank you.